started by Colin Kaepernick, but what I'm not sure about is if you know why he started it. Kaepernick began his protest against police brutality and racial inequalities against African Americans and other minorities in the United States. To go back to the beginning, Kaepernick began sitting during the anthem because he refused to stand up to show pride in the flag for a country that oppresses black people and people of color. He continued on to say that this is bigger than football and he can't turn a blind eye. He references the increase in visibility of police brutality and police killings of people of color, saying, "There are bodies in the street and people are getting paid leave and getting away with murder," which is what motivated him to begin.
What made him start kneeling instead of sitting?
He switched to kneeling after receiving a letter from an Army veteran and former NFL long snapper named Nate Boyer, who thought that the most respectful way for Kaepernick to get his point across without disrespecting the flag would be to kneel instead of sitting on the bench. This way he could continue his protest without disrespecting the military. And in the beginning, he was able to do his protest with little controversy or media attention.
His decision to kneel has gotten a lot of media attention, support, and hate. What's changed?
What changed is he started getting more attention when the San Francisco 49ers, the team he was with at the time, were scheduled to play the Los Angeles Chargers on Military Appreciation Night. This was the first thing he chose to kneel instead of sitting during the national anthem, and he was joined by his teammate Eric Reed as Nate Boyer stood next to them. Players from other teams eventually began to join in, with the record number choosing to kneel in 2017 after Donald Trump said all players who kneeled should be fired.
How did the NFL react to Kaepernick kneeling?
Originally, they released a statement saying that players are encouraged but not required to stand during the playing of the national anthem. But on May 23, 2018, they created a policy where all players that are on the field must stand for the national anthem. While they're not directly forcing players to stand for the anthem, to me, it seems like this rule was made to reduce the visibility of this movement while still attempting to remain impartial. In my opinion, it seems like this decision was made to please the large number of people who were against Kaepernick and who found his kneeling disrespectful. As this controversy has evolved, a debate has ensued about both positive and negative representation, but has focused disproportionately on the negative representations.
Some people argue that players kneeling is a negative representation of an American. By kneeling during the national anthem, they believe that these players are disrespecting the flag and specifically veterans. Because veterans have sacrificed in the name of the flag to protect Americans, this argument posits that the national anthem honors this country and their service, and players who kneel are disrespecting what the anthem and the flag stand for. In a similar vein, some veterans have vocalized that they believe sitting during the national anthem is disrespectful for the same reasons, but kneeling is a respectful way to protest.
On the other hand, others claim that villainizing how someone chooses to protest when they are being nonviolent because it offends a dominant group in society. People who argue this draw attention to the double standard. When someone belongs to a minority group and criticizes the dominant group or structure within society, their actions are scrutinized. Instead of criticizing their claim, their method of protest is being criticized to divert away from the conversation about the criticisms of the dominant group or structure.
In addition to this largely dichotomous debate, some have criticized the representations the players present, because there are some who have knelt for only a game when it is extremely salient in the news. For example, the majority of the Houston Texans knelt together after news outlets reported that their owner said, "We can't have the inmates running the prison," in reference to the kneeling protests. However, the next week, none of the Texans players knelt. Because of the brevity of this protest, in this case, this represents the issues they are protesting as inconstant and less important than if they were constantly protesting. Furthermore, it fails to bring any awareness to the issue because it is in response to something in the news and ended as soon as the news cycle moved on, which further perpetuates the idea that it is a single problematic event, not a systematic problem.
So now that we've discussed some of the harmful representations of this controversy, we need to consider the positive representations and the representations that we believe we need to see more of.
While there was a lot of hate directed towards Kaepernick for his kneeling protest, he did inspire many others to join him in calling out the systematic police violence directed towards African Americans. Not only did Kaepernick use his platform as a well-known athlete to draw more attention to this undeniable racially targeted brutality, but he also risked that platform, his entire career, for this protest.
While many celebrities were quick to back up Kaepernick and the kneeling protest while it was popular in the media, once the controversy surrounding it died down, so did the support. We need more representations like Kaepernick who speak out against police brutality for more than just a few days while it's in the news. Celebrities and professional athletes have an unusual position in society that gives them a lot more power to make a difference. However, Oftentimes, celebrities are only willing to speak out when they know it's low risk and they receive positive attention for it. We need more representations like Kaepernick who are willing to take risks in order to stand up for the systematic racism in our society. Not only do we need more positive representations in the media, but we also need a change in the media itself.
Kaepernick began his protest by sitting during the anthem long before it became a well-known controversy. In fact, the only reason it became a focus in the media was because Steve Wyke, an African-American reporter, noticed Kaepernick and his protests and decided to publish a story about Kaepernick's motivations behind his sitting during the anthem. After Wyke's story was published, other news organizations started jumping at the chance to cover the story, each putting their own spin on Kaepernick's protest and bringing national attention to Kaepernick's protest. If Steve Wyke hadn't decided to publish a story on Kaepernick and his protests against racialized police brutality, who knows whether or not it would have received as much attention as it did.
The media contributes to the racism in this country every day by the consistent use of different words to describe white people compared to African Americans and other minorities. The majority of the time when we see articles about African Americans, they are the criminal, and the white person is the victim or the hero. The media has an enormous amount of power in terms of sharing information and shaping views. So in order for change to happen, there needs to be more reporters like Steve Wyke who presented positive representations of minorities and drew attention to people who are willing to speak out against police violence and other important issues.
Meaningless preseason game. But what went mostly unnoticed at the time surely is anything but meaningless now.
It's to bring awareness and make people realize what's really going on in this country. There are a lot of things that are going on that are unjust, people aren't being held accountable for, and that's something that needs to change.
In the effort to stand for what he believed in, his action to sit was later lifted to taking a knee. As 5 weeks have passed, each day offering a new voice, a new form of support, another point of conflict.
You gotta respect the flag. It's bigger than just you.
The reason these guys are kneeling, the reason we're locking arms is to bring people together, to make people aware that this is not right.
Colin Kaepernick's protest.
Audience reception of the kneeling controversy has been far from uniform. Rather, responses to the NFL protests have remained divided and polarized by both race and party. Most significantly, perhaps, are the differences between black and white Americans' understanding of and conclusions about the protest's purpose. That is, while a strong majority of black Americans acknowledge that the protest is one of unfair policing, many white Americans remain critical of the protests, claiming that, in effect, they are disrespectful to the freedoms of the anthem represents.
Furthermore, the controversy has spread to the political arena. President Trump made several divisive statements, calling out Kaepernick several times while also recognizing peaceful protest as a hallmark of our democracy, leaving many confused about where our nation's leaders stand on these issues of social injustice. Claims that the protests are not in fact about police brutality and systematic racism have functioned to mute the voices of the protesters and invalidate the claims of a group of Americans that already feel marginalized. Those opposed to the protests have argued against the use of the athletic arena as a platform for furthering a political agenda. Yet, this is not the first time we have seen fame and politics interact.
Many opposed to the protests have been characterized as disconnected from the state of racial inequality in America, and it is clear that those who have not experienced police brutality have struggled to identify with those who have. Audience reception of Kaepernick's protest was quite negative, viewed as anti-military and anti-police, neither of which were linked to Kaepernick's intentions. Yet, what has followed Kaepernick's initial protests in 2016 is an ongoing debate not only about the issues he was protesting, but also about the First Amendment and the role of nationalism in sports.
Stand with me.
Nike is just one example of using a wide audience platform to endorse Colin Kaepernick. Nike has a history of using controversial events to support and create change within society. Because of the high controversy, Nike no doubt experienced backlash with its customers. Customers who were unhappy with the support Nike had shown for Colin Kaepernick started a small movement, you could say, of burning their Nike shoes and other Nike gear, and recording it and posting it to social media. However, as Nike normally faces backlash when taking a stance within these controversial topics, their sales soon started to skyrocket. This opened up the kneeling movement to a bigger audience and educated more people about the true purpose of kneeling, especially once the advertisement featuring Colin Kaepernick was created. Other audiences took this as a stance Nike was taking against the NFL. Other people have not been as consistent on the support of kneeling as Nike. Some players in the league started to protest but stopped, which to some audiences was taken as valuing their careers more than Black lives. Others have attributed it to something beyond the players, as Black men make up about 80% of the league and are perceived to all just coincidentally not want to protest on their own. Additionally, there are some audiences who show support to an extent but not fully. In this sense, these audiences applaud Kaepernick's bravery and purpose but are not willing to give up the NFL and continue to supply them with money and views. Again, this goes in with prioritizing games over Black lives.